Hey everybody, namaste. Chris Quinones here from Rasayana. I am an Ayurvedic health counselor, yoga therapist, massage therapist, and dance machine who lives outside of the Boston area. And I've been working in rehabilitative body work and self-healing and natural pain management for over 20 years now, professionally, both as a body worker and as a former competitive athlete and working in my early career in orthopedics and sports medicine, and really have making a wonderful life for myself, combining all of these topics that I love so much, and opening up my practice that specializes in Ayurveda, this self-healing system from India. And if you're new to me, welcome. I'm glad you're here. If you didn't catch last night's episode, make sure to check your email for the replay link that I sent out this morning. And we talked about what Ayurveda has to say in terms of the relationship between autoimmune disease and chronic inflammation in the mind body. And I talked about how we can focus on muscles and joints and mitigate the natural degenerative processes that happen, and all of the side effects from chronic inflammation, our lifestyles, our diet, our habits, and our exposure to toxins in the environment, and how to keep the joints nice and lubricated, keep the body moving, keeping flow within the channels of the body with lymph and blood and consciousness. And also, I talked about being able to modify your schedules and be able to slow down and recognize the signs of imbalance for each of the three forces, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out, do take some time to catch the replay. And today we're moving on. We're moving on to the gut, the second of 5 key areas of your home and health where inflammation lurks. Now, the gut is obviously a huge topic, not something I can cover even in an hour or 3 hours. So what I hope to do today is just touch on why food combining is the easiest and often biggest mistake people make with regard to their diets. When Ayurveda looks to our digestion, our Agni, right? We look to its digestive capacity, and we look to nourishing the tissues through many substances, not just food. But for today's purposes, we're going to talk about food because we're talking about the gut. And when we talk about rasa, right, that first tissue that I talked about yesterday that forms in the body, that's that liquid portion of the body. And rasa is responsible for that protection and lubrication of the joints, and really is what we need to keep in mind when we go about our nourishing of ourselves. So rasa, the word itself, can be broken down into two. There's ra in the Sanskrit language, which really means to praise or to taste or to relish, right? It's a real positive connotation. And the second half of the word, the sa, refers to juice or maybe sap, right? This is the essence of life. And so when the two combine, we get that vital liquid in the body. And when we nourish the tissues to form high quality rasa dhatu, rasa tissue, we have to be mindful about when we eat and how we're combining the foods that we eat. Now, Ayurveda goes to a lot of senses, right? Ayurveda is a sensual lifestyle, folks. If you are someone that is really in tune and loves to explore the senses, then Ayurveda will be a wonderful place for you to explore your truest nature. And the basics, ABCs of Ayurveda, I want to give you are the 10 pairs of qualities, or gunas, as we say. And the gunas are taken from the Vedas. These are these ancient texts that Ayurveda is based from, the system, the practice is based from. And they're 10 pairs of opposites. And there's a shloka in the Vedas that talks about these qualities, and this is one of them. In fact, it's not from the Veda, but this is from the Ashtanga Hridayam, which is a more contemporary compilation of the lessons in the Sushruta and the Charak Samhita volumes of the medical texts in Ayurveda. And I'm going to recite this mantra for you and then go through each of those gunas and qualities. Guru manda hima snigdha slakshna sandra mridu stiraha gunaha sa sukshma vishada vimshatahi sa viparyayaha. I love the resonance of mantras. I love mantras. And mantras are these phrases or words that are repeated over and over in the mind or out loud. And Ayurveda would be taught from teacher to student in an oral tradition. There weren't things written down for the student. And so to remember large amounts of complex material, we would often use melody and song to, somewhat like a nursery rhyme, to teach the lesson or fundamental lesson to the beginner student. And so all this shloka is a list of the 10 pairs of opposite qualities that make up the world around us and make up our food. And this is where food combining can get us into some pretty hot water. Nourishment of food has different qualities, or foods have different qualities by their nature, and then they may have a different quality after they've been cooked. So looking at these 10 pairs, we have guru, meaning heavy. Manda is slow or dull. Hima, like the Himalayas, it means cold. Snigdha, oily and unctuous. Sandra is dense or solid. Mridu is soft. Stira is stable. Stura is big or gross. It's more in the physical tissues, in the physical body. Pichila means slimy. Lagu, light. Tikshna, sharp or penetrating. That's that fire element that's really sharp and penetrating. Ushna means hot. Ruksha for dry. Kara means rough. Drava, liquid. Katina means hard. Chala means mobile. Sukshma is subtle, and Vishada means clear. And so when Ayurveda and the yogis look at their environment around them and look at these qualities within themselves, then you're better able to identify what the imbalance is and what opposite quality you need to introduce to bring about that balance. So that is the foundation for how you can start to look at your diet and your meals, what you put into your dishes and your smoothies and the like, and improve the digestive capacity, improve Agni, which in the end is going to burn Ama, that sticky accumulated toxicity in the mind body, and allow for a clean flow of consciousness, of prana and life force energy, and allow for you to be fortified and nourished and really eliminate the chronic pain and inflammation that has become so standard and common in our modern lives. It's common, guys, but it's not normal. okay? And smoothies tend to be a real popular trend in the wellness world because they're convenient. They can pack a lot of nutrients in them because you've got lots of different vegetables and fruits thrown in there. They're convenient because you can travel with them, and they pack well, especially with someone who might have a commute, or someone who, like around here, may live in an urban area and be commuting by bike or by train or bus. You know, smoothies are really tasty for sure, but they're not so friendly on the gut. Why? Because they have often too many ingredients, right? Ayurveda likes to keep things really simple, and the gut likes things pretty simple too, by the way. And if you are someone with an impaired digestion and you're trying to ramp up your Agni, or you're just trying to detox the Ama that's accumulated, even if you're feeling healthy, truth is, thin body doesn't always mean healthy body, right? If you are not eliminating on a regular basis and burning that Ama off through a strong digestive fire, no bueno. You're accumulating toxins, you're accumulating inflammation, and you are inciting a lot of autoimmune reactivity in the body that may otherwise not occur. Okay, so with smoothies, we've got often a cold quality to them because we throw a bunch of ice or cold fluids like water or dairy, which is another common component of smoothies, whether you're, uh, drinking cow's milk, or maybe you use nut milks, and that's fine too. But definitely dairy is a common ingredient for smoothies. And the combination of vegetables with fruits and along with just really too many ingredients, generally you don't want your Ayurveda approved beverages to be more than 5 ingredients. And oftentimes Ayurveda will use culinary spices in order for certain food combinations to be more easily digested in the gut. So let's talk about that. What combinations should you be avoiding, right? The common mistakes, like the ones we see in smoothies, is combining dairy with other ingredients. Dairy has the quality of coolness, of heaviness, of that kind of snigda. It's like that slimy. It's lubricating in its quality, not so much slimy, but it's nourishing, it's hydrating, it's cooling, but it's also really heavy. And we got to be honest here in terms of how we produce our food in the world right now. And even if you are able to digest cow's milk, milk as it's produced now and homogenized and the like really is difficult for the human body to digest at this time. So that's why Ayurveda leans to these digestive spices like cumin and coriander and fennel and turmeric and cinnamon, to help stoke the digestive capacity to digest the dairy, because you're not what you eat, you're what you digest. So if you're not digesting it, then that food is not being converted to a healthy tissue, it's being converted to ama. Okay, so dairy, dairy is a pretty bad combination with anything. Generally, you want to have dairy on its own, which is why we don't combine it with fruit when we have yogurt. On every food blog, I see yogurt cups and recipes for all these kind of fruit parfaits with granola and all kinds of fun, powders mixed in and the like. But again, it's too complex, right? With dairy, you don't want to combine it with other foods. Generally, well, you could combine it with vegetables, I'll say, and some digestive spices perhaps. But remember, the quality of dairy like cheese and milk and yogurt is going to be very heavy. So if you're someone with a kapha imbalance and you're already experiencing chronic congestion or lifelong allergies or asthma, then you might want to consider lightening your diet and minimizing the dairy, okay? In general, you want to avoid combining raw food and cooked food in the same dish. Ayurveda generally recommends cooked seasonal foods that are well spiced, meaning spiced for your constitution, for your digestive capacity. For some of you, that's going to mean adding a bit of heat, like cayenne pepper or black pepper and ginger, in order to stoke the fire. For some of you, it means adding cooler spices like coriander and cilantro and lime, and using those kinds of ingredients in your diet. So it depends on these qualities, right? So remembering that mantra, remembering these 10 pairs of opposites is really the foundational language for you to understand Ayurveda. I can go ahead and make a lot of recommendations for people and just give you a list of recipes and a meal plan and tell you to eat it. But I'm really a strong believer in teaching you how to care for yourself, because that's what Ayurveda is. It is the art of living, and really the study of life itself and everything that's encompassed in it. Who are you? And how do you as an organism interact with, respond to, contribute to, work with, or against your environment? And so understanding these 10 pairs of opposites will give you the first clue as to what kinds of foods might go better together than another. Okay, so we've talked about raw foods versus cooked foods, minimizing your dairy or limiting its combination to vegetables. We talked about fruit not being combined with dairy, and fruit itself is generally an eat it alone or leave it alone kind of category. And I'll tell you why that is. It's because fruit digests very quickly. It doesn't need a lot of time. And so it quickly converts. And if we don't have enough space between the fruit and any other substances that we're taking into the stomach within those 2 hours, those first 2 hours, and food's coming in and being digested in the gut, then you're creating a lot of gas, a lot of bloating, and indigestion. Because if you combine fruit with yogurt, for example, the gut will finish processing the fruit first, but the yogurt is heavier. Fruit is generally pretty light. And so the body's like, well, hold up, we can't open up the channel for the next, vessel to be filled and for the food to pass through, because we got to process this yogurt here. And so the fruit just kind of hangs out until the body's done processing the yogurt, and then we'll move it to the next stage of digestion. And those three forces I talked about yesterday, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, they're active at different stages of digestion and at different sites within the GI tract. The GI tract in Ayurveda we call the Manovaha Srota. It is the great carrying channel of the body, right? Maha means great, the big guy, all encompassing, right? Vaha refers to flow, right? The flow of a channel carrying something. And Srota is the channel, it's the actual path. And so what good is a path if you don't have anything going through it? So Mahavata Srota, the great life-carrying channel, is the GI tract, right? And so when the food goes through that process of digestion and assimilation, we've got, we've got Pitta in the small intestine, we've got Vata in the colon, which will help with the movement and elimination, and we've got different tastes as well. Ayurveda has 6 different tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. And each food has these tastes. Spices have these tastes. And so when they're digested, they have a certain effect on the tissues, on the dhatus. And certain tastes are digested at certain points in the GI tract. I talk about this a lot more in my Clear Mind, Strong Body program, and also in the Fire Starter program, which is my seasonal Ayurvedic cleanse that I do every fall and spring. So if you want to know more about how to go about understanding these qualities and diving a little bit deeper into food combinations, then check that out, or just drop me a note. I'd be happy to set up a time to chat with you about it. But if you really want an Ayurveda approved smoothie, yeah, then you're not likely going to be using a lot of ingredients. Now, last night I gave you a recipe for the Juicy Joints elixir, and that used water along with digestive spices like turmeric and ginger and pepper and salt. And then what else did I put in there? Oh, hemp seeds, right? For its anti-inflammatory oils and properties to help lubricate that liquidity in the body. And so if we've got that strong digestive capacity, we can do that. And if we don't, then we don't. And Ayurveda uses dairy as a vehicle to deliver medicine. So often when Ayurveda uses dairy, it's accompanied with a lot of spices like cinnamon and ginger and cardamom are good ones that I like to blend together in equal amounts to make a nice sweet spice mix. And anytime I'm having yogurt or dairy, I know it's a kapha constitution with kapha imbalances that I need a little extra help with some fiery spices when I have my dairy. So that's just how I go about it, and understanding that these qualities are really the basis you're going to build everything on. Yeah. And so we talk about the 5 elements yesterday and the 3 doshas that those elements form. Today we're talking about those 10 gunas and the opposite qualities as the foundation to work with the 6 tastes of our food in Manovaha Srota, that main carrying channel of the GI tract. And by avoiding combining foods like I've talked about, then you're able to give your body the gift of the time and the space to do the work at hand. Yeah. Because if we're not doing that, then it's like stuffing the washing machine with too many clothes. The clothes aren't going to get very clean if there isn't enough space in the drum to actually churn and wash and process what's in it. And the same is true for our gut, where we're not allowing enough time between our meals, and we are combining the wrong foods at mealtime. So, ideally, you want to allow a minimum of 4 hours between your breakfast and your lunch, and between lunch and dinner. Now, not all of you need breakfast or eat breakfast, and that's fine. And if that's the case, then you need to be sure you've worked out through trial and error what your digestion needs to get you to lunchtime without the snacking. Yeah, I talk about intermittent fasting or cyclic eating. I like to call it rhythmic eating, because Ayurveda is really about rhythmic living. And there's a time for you to eat and a time for you to be fasting, meaning no caloric intake, so that the body can actually digest what you took in last. So 4 hours between breakfast and lunch and dinner, and then a minimum of 13 hours between dinner and breakfast. That's the standard, I'll say. Yeah. Now, obviously, everyone is coming from a different level of health and experience with different imbalances, perhaps. And so that cycle may not work for you. So you might have to start differently with some smaller windows. But you experiment with that and see how you feel. See if you're digesting better by allowing that space between your meals, so that ingredients are not combining when they shouldn't be. And then, of course, avoid the combinations that I've mentioned about eating fruit alone, minimizing your dairy and limiting that combination to digestive spices or some lighter vegetables that are easy to digest. Generally eating your food cooked and avoiding the combination of cooked versus raw. Fruit, you want to eat it alone or leave it alone, and always eat seasonally. If you've got, and then, you can dive in even deeper. There are some, I'm thinking about even within fruit itself. Certain fruits don't combine well, I'm thinking about melons, for example, which are wonderfully cooling and really wonderful to have now at the end of summer where all this heat has accumulated and dried out the tissues and set us up for dryness in the winter if we didn't contain that heat. So melons are wonderful, but when you eat melons and combine them with other food, it produces a lot of gas. So melons are best eaten alone, even without other fruit. So that prosciutto wrapped melon ball that you might have been snacking on, no bueno, not so good, produces a lot of gas and bloating and strain and stress on the gut. So don't do it. Same with your fruit and cheese platters, right? Parties where we've got apple and cheese, which, not a good combination. We don't want to combine dairy with other foods, especially fruit. And even if that may not cause you immediate gastric distress, it's still not a good habit to keep because over time, years, decades, it will lead to inflammation in the gut. And these Pear patches, which are the sections of our gut that are responsible for our immune system, they get really labored down. And we have all of these factors in our environment with regard to co-infections and parasites and all kinds of different factors with the nourishment and food that we take in because of our agriculture methods. Again, can't not mention it because it's part of the conversation that no one seems to want to have, except in this tribe and others too. But if you are hanging around with me and really committed to healing yourself, then we got to talk about healing the planet too, because these elements that make it up make us up too, and the planet gives us the medicine. Mother Nature makes the medicine for us. We just need to know time and place and for who, because Ayurveda is not a cookie cutter system. And if you try to fit in one recipe or one approach for all, then you're not going to get the results, right? That Ayurveda is a very dynamic, living, breathing system. And what you need at one stage of your life will be different from what you need another time. So that's why working with a practitioner is really helpful to guide you through the appropriate habits and steer you in the right direction for what phase of life you're in and what imbalances and qualities you need to be on the lookout for. So I hope that helps today and get you started on how to just be a little bit more mindful around food combining. And if you're looking for an Ayurveda approved smoothie, other than last night's, which wasn't really a smoothie, that was more of a tonic. But if you're looking for something a little more creamier, a little more delightful, like yesterday's tonic was pretty bitter in taste, right? A lot of bitter tasting herbs and ingredients in that. This recipe is a bit sweeter. So I like to soak about 6 almonds in water, peel the skin off of them, chop up about 3 to 4 dates, warm 2 cups of milk. I use organic, whole, A2 grass-fed cow's milk. And I spice it up. Now, if you can't handle dairy, then that's fine. Use whatever milk works for you. But if you can tolerate dairy, go ahead and warm it up because that's what makes it easier to digest. And then you're going to season that with equal parts of ground cinnamon, ground ginger, and what else? Cardamom, ground cardamom. Those are my favorites. And I usually make it in a big batch. I'll take like a 1/4 cup of each and put it into a big mason bell jar, shake it around, and then I just have that in my pantry. So anytime I'm making breakfast cereal or making this Ayurveda approved smoothie, I have it at the ready to add a sweet taste that also stokes my Agni. So I warm up the 2 cups of milk. I don't boil it, just warm it till it gets hot and steamy. And then I will add the spices to that while it's warm, mix it up, and then with my immersion blender, blend it with the chopped dates, the almonds. Maybe I'll throw in a teaspoon of ashwagandha, that adaptogenic Ayurvedic herb I mentioned yesterday, great for supporting and building muscle and bone tissue, as well as supporting the nervous system and the adrenal glands. So whip that up into a nice frothy blend and enjoy that as an Ayurveda approved smoothie. You can experiment with the thickness of it by adding more or less dates, more or less water or milk or nut milk, but experiment and know that that will be an Ayurveda approved smoothie, and it's also a great bedtime tonic. So if you're having trouble with insomnia and getting to sleep, that's a great habit to treat yourself to a couple hours after dinner and just have a cup of it, right? We're not talking about Dunkin' Donut size, 16-ounce kind of delights before bed. That's too much before you go to bed. Just a cup, and see how that works for you. And with that, tune in tomorrow where we are going to be talking about bedtime routines and what relationship that has to do, what that has to do with chronic inflammation and why there's no such thing as night owls. And how, if you are a night owl, you might want to take another look at that. We're going to talk about why that causes problems in the body's capacity to self-heal and what to do about it. So that's tomorrow. Make sure that you tune in and stay in touch. Go ahead and say hi to me. Follow me on social media. Rasayana is on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram as Yogini Q, the letter Q for my last name. And be sure to stop by my website at www.rasa, R-A-S-A-yana, YANA.com. There's a lot of free resources there you can check out, read more about my programs, the body work treatments that are available, and reach out. I'd love to chat. So I'll see you tomorrow. Namaste. Oh, and it's September 1st, so in Massachusetts, it's the state primaries. Make sure you get to the polls. Good night.